play. And you want to share the things that you learned, and that leads to talking to more people, and that leads to learning more things, and just don't talk to people. So I am part of Agaric Technology Collective, a web development cooperative, and we are presenting when there's not a module for that, how to make and maintain a new Drupal module for the recording. It's presented with behind-the-scenes help from my colleagues at Agaric, two of them, it's about a third to a half of Agaric represented here. Mauricio Dinarte, who gets to more camps than almost anyone I know from all over the world, and Keegan Rankin, and other Agarics past and present. But send the complaints to me, and send heckling posts to me on Fediverse, Mastodon, instance, social.coop at MLNCN. So, what do you do when there's not a module for what you want to do? When there's not a module for that, you make your own. It's easy. Now, we want our hypothetical website has important content about Frankenstein. Your site lets people relive great literature that may have been inspired by a near global famine. And you've already created your excellent content type under structure content. You created your Frankenstein content type. This is all configuration. You don't need a module for this. But somehow the usual save button at the bottom doesn't communicate what you want when creating Frankenstein content. How can you change that button? So, to make a module, you need a .info file. This is the only hard requirement. Everything else varies. As name, the description is optional, type of module is required, and then the core version requirements. This file tells you about your module and is technically all you need to enable your module. So it's there when you start developing it. The second piece of code can go in .module. Hooks in Drupal 11.1 can also go in their own files, which is a new and better way of doing that. For ease of doing it for the documentation that's out there, and to work, back to Drupal 8, if you wanted to do that, you can use this code. So, hook form alter is a hook you can use to change any form in Drupal, and you can specifically use hook form name alter, and where you just drop in the name of the form, which I'm going ahead a little bit, then pass in $form. And so here we have changed action submit value to reanimate, exactly what we want. Those two files go in a folder with the same machine name as your module. So if it's frankenstein.info.yaml, you want a Frankenstein folder. And now all the files are in place in our local site. We go to our create Frankenstein content form, and it hasn't changed. Enable your module. Add extend add in modules or the drush-y en Frankenstein. And this slide is the most important one you're going to be shown, I'm sure. Enable your module, and boom, reanimate. It does it. Ta-da! Now you know how to make a module. So you're all sitting there thinking, sure, that was easy if you know the exact words and symbols to put in that file. And you're absolutely right. So I will show you how we get to figure all of that out. Drupal is often compared to a box of Legos that you can build just about anything you want with. But sometimes those Legos have been put together for you, and sometimes not. So, commerce module gives you an online commerce engine. Someone may have already made a module or a recipe for your music media gallery using Drupal core media. But then sometimes the module you need is just the pile of possible Legos. But a few basic approaches give a lot of power. And so, two secrets first good news, or one's good news, second is bad news. So knowing where to paste unleashes the power of Stack Overflow, Stack Exchange, and random sites on the internet. The same family of sites that have been helping a couple million developers quit Vim over the past decade. This is an old screenshot. So now you know enough to be dangerous, and I hope I have, with the simple intro, slayed the mythology that module making is a mystic domain of Drupal druids. The bad news is that even that simple form alter, which is not intuitive to know how to use it in the first place, has hidden gotchas. As written, it only applies to the create form, the node add form, not the edit form. And then there's a dozen variations of the form alt hook, and all are valid. But the secret to how to do that is you can start with just a regular hook form alter, and that will run for every single hook, every single form in Drupal, rather. And inside that, you can run a debugger, or you can just do a print statement and print the form ID. And there you can learn the form ID of every form in Drupal, and so you can then start targeting it, whether just with an if statement in your module, or by using the more advanced hook naming, where you give the specific things. And the new style of doing Drupal hooks is really, really nice, because you can have two different hook names in a row and have your code just once. So if you need the same code to run for the node add form version of the form alter and the edit update version of the form alter, you can just do that with two hooks in a row. And we'll get to that in the release notes for Drupal 11.1. All right, so our prelude was how to make a module. And we'll move on to Act 1, how not to make a module. And then Act 2, how not to have to make a whole entire module. And then Act 3, the important part, how to figure out how to make a module, with an encore on how to contribute your module and more on maintaining it. So, how not to make a module. So, hierarchy of code usage is you stop at the first layer, configurable to your needs. Drupal core code can do what you need by configuring it. Great, stop there. Broadly supported contributed module code, use that, configure it, and there. A less supported or patched contributed module code, if you can find it and use it. And then code you have written and contributed, that's the layer that we are going to be concentrating on here. And then custom code you've written and hidden from the world. If you can write and contribute it, you're better off. So, when not to make a module is when there's an easier way. So, you find a contrib module that does it. Should it be in a template? If it's just a template override, you do that in your form, in your theme layer, that's better. If it's very specific to the display on your site, you should probably be doing it in the theme layer, and if it's about display. But if it's at all data, and you might ever want to switch themes, you want to allow site builders or site managers to disable or change settings, then you probably want to get it in a module, or some of these alternatives to a module other than template override, which includes string override. And then in the category of broadly supported contrib module that allows crazy configuration, ECA, event condition action, is, if you've used rules module in the past, the rules has a clear name, but it's the same idea. You can just hook into all kinds of events inside Drupal, list your conditions for whether your action should run, and then have actions that it can take. So you can validate forms, you can have it create a whole other node while one's being saved. But that said, I feel like usually if you can just configure with the broadly supported module, if there is a module that does what you need, I would use it over ECA, even if ECA has more uses, just because having something where people have been working on your specific use case is going to be better maintained than having your own complex configuration in ECA. And there are a couple modules for string overrides, which will be on our site notes. When building a Drupal site, there's a module for that. It can be the sweetest words you can hear. So let's start there. Is there already a module for that? Drupal.org/project/module is how you want to get there. I messed up the image. That's just the new modern Drupal homepage, but you go to download, and under download, it is where it has modules now. They moved around. I wish it'd just be under extend or something like that, but it's not hard to be there. And once you're there, you get a list like this. It's 55,000 modules right now, I recommend you start by changing the core compatibility to something reasonable. Drupal 10 probably makes the most sense right now. It's very easy to get to a module to Drupal 11 if that's what you need. Change the status to all projects, because if you're at the point of considering making your own module, if finding not a full module but a sandbox project that someone's contributed, so it doesn't have any official releases, doesn't have a real namespace, but still it could be code that you can take on. And if you can't find anything with your keywords doing that, then allow any version. And then put in all the keywords you used to search on this page. Let's next one. But use it, put all the words you can think of, try it, just keep changing it. Take note of all of the things you search for here. And again, remove the version. If you can find an older version of a module, sometimes porting it is the best thing, and just use a lot of different keywords. Do the same searches on an internet-wide search with Drupal and module included as keywords. And then ask an IRC, Drupal-support, Slack equivalents of IRC are where to go now. It's still worth checking out people in IRC, but the community is mostly on Slack now. #support, #general, and #contribute. To join, go to drupal.org/Slack. And take note of every word that you use when searching for a module. This is how people in the same situation will find your module when you publish it. And just make sure those words go from your notes to somewhere public, a blog post or the module page itself. If there's a module that does almost exactly what you want, contribute a patch or port it to modern Drupal. And even if your patch is not accepted, nor is there any way given to sort of build on a module, you can fork the module and maintain your own copy. And that's sort of the standard way of contributing a patch now, is you have an issue fork. So you can feel kind of secure in using the code that you're proposing indefinitely while the maintainer of a module, either gets around to reviewing it, doing something, says they're not going to do it, in which case you can fork the module or see if you can move your code into a module that uses that module, or you possibly become a co-maintainer yourself. So this is one where Garrick contributed a patch to fix an error when user has been created and edits the profile for the first time with the comment notify module. Module did everything we needed except for this bug. And then this was committed and brought in. But this strategy is not without risks. David, who was with Agaric at the time, NuGet, was made a maintainer of this module, and now routinely fixes issues there himself. But that's better for everyone than to make your own module with duplicate functionality. So you start out in the issue queue of an existing module. Now how not to make a whole module. Still probably going to be a real module, but be a part of something bigger but not as big as all of Drupal. So your module is going to build on not just Drupal core, but other key ecosystems in Drupal, and just some examples of large ecosystems: commerce, ECA that we talked about before, extra field, search API. So building on or with some major sort of ecosystems within Drupal, you are likely to be able to join a community of people invested in a part of Drupal and willing to share passion and knowledge. And this goes for both the previous section and this one. When you find a module that's doing what you need, you have a chance to become a co-maintainer. And the guide to co-maintaining modules is excellent at that. It all starts with filing issues, feature requests, and then getting code in there generally before any of that happens. But if there is a module that's close to doing what you're doing, that is where to start. And then when you're building on modules, look for opportunities to plug in. Literally, look for plugins. They'll be in source plugin folder of whatever modules you are operating in the vicinity of. So an example is the Better Exposed Filters module. We contributed a links filter module, which is confusing because Better Exposed Filter is, of course, filtering, but it's like building on Search API. It's like part of the Search API and Facets ecosystem is where it really shines. And so when you have there we go, down. Hopefully I haven't missed too many down arrows on my presentation. But the items on the side is what are links that can filter the content on the left. This is a common module for powerful Drupal sites with Search API. But when there's, dozens or 100 or more options to filter by, you need to be able to filter those links in the filter. So that's what this is doing. It filters that list down to 2 that match tech in the example below. And so it's still going down. And so in our module, same thing as before. You just make a folder, you have an info file, and this is the first next file. This time, instead of a .module, it's in BEF links_filter, our module name, source, plugin. And here we're just copying what Better Exposed Filters itself is doing. It puts its own plugins in a Better Exposed Filters subfolder, and then filter and links filter. And so off to the edge there, our namespace ends in filter, and we are using Better Exposed Filters filter links class, which means that we are outright extending the filter links from Better Exposed Filter itself. So you don't have to know how to make the code. You can use a very similar process we showed before. I hope we showed it before, of just searching the code base for something you see in that module. And if you know which module it is, it's even easier. You can target your search there, find the file that's doing what you want, and extend the class. If it's object-oriented, if it's in the source folder, chances are you can extend it like this. Our class links filter is extending class links. And the classes can even have the same name because they're all namespaced. So with our module directly inheriting everything that Better Exposed Filters links filter does, it's doing all its work, and now we just need to add the JavaScript that's doing the filtering of the filters. And sorry for that confusing words. But it means we get all the actual facet links for free, and we can add on options. And so, we have the minimum to show text filter, the initial shown, allow show all. And so the reason for showing this slide is that the parent, : in there is a very common pattern when you're extending a function that you can see in another file. then you can get whatever it's doing and add your stuff to it. And there's just similar things for actually showing the widget, but mostly it's just getting these configuration options available to JavaScript that then does the work. All right, so moving more into how to figure out how to make a module. When to make a module, you've identified to the best of your ability that there's definitely not something out there that does what you want to do. And at this point, I personally do not advocate introspection, as in, why am I trying to do something that no one else is trying to do? Just, you want to do it, that's good enough. There's something missing, it's you, do it. And so how do you make this contribution to Drupal, to society? You steal and you keep stealing. So if you decide that Drupal should have one of these button links you see at the top right of a bunch of pages in Drupal's administration, you don't even need to know that they are called action links and to find a tutorial on making them. You can just go look in the code of a module you know has them, grep for the label, and steal code from around it. And grepping is hard to see there, but it's the command that's going to be on Mac and Linux and most Windows command line things now also. So even when I am fully using an IDE for everything else, I like to use grep in the regular command line when looking for a text file. This habit is probably fueled more by my failing to tell the IDE to index Drupal core and contrib modules, which are often downloaded into vendor directory and other directories rather than being in what the IDE is looking at. But grep on the command line, you're not going to miss anything. grep dash, and then various options, but NHIR, N, lowercase n, capital H, capital I, capital R, lowercase s is what I just have as an alias on my system, so I always get it. Just searching for add content block in all of core, because I don't know where the heck this is from, gives me the code that actually has it. And so now I've found this action YAML file, and I can see how it works. I can copy one into my own module and do a very similar thing. Now, the other tricks on how to do it are that the appears on are also route names. So you know now to look up routes. And so it's one of the common building blocks of the whole system. We've covered the form alter hook, talked a little bit about the node insert hook, plugins. We had a plugin that was specifically better exposed filter module, but more common ones are block plugins and formatter plugins, like field formatters. And then services, like route subscriber and event subscriber, are very common ways to plug in. And sometimes you don't need anything. You just have a single YAML file to add a route. In this case, they also call for a class, so they can control more carefully what it's doing. But again, we can copy that and do the same thing in our module. So it's really about learning how to learn, Drupal documentation, looking at other Drupal contributed modules, Drupal core and its modules, just looking at the code, searching for the bits that look relevant to you, finding the things that are doing what you want to do but you want to extend. Like, it's literally the extends keyword that you're going to need, and you're going to see that because generally the module that you might think is pretty close to what you want to do that maybe you're going to extend is itself extending something in Drupal core. So it literally says extends and a class name. Do try to use a debugger. I use VS Code with ddev. Definitely use ddev. That's the main tip. Use ddev locally. But it makes setting up a debugger very easy. but yeah, I mean JetBrains and all kinds of the PHP, Storm, all these things. There's plenty of good debuggers out there. They're much easier now than ever. Drupal forums and issues, drupal.stackexchange.com, the rest of the internet, and code search and grep. That's where to start. If you're, can't cover everything in a session, that's where you start when it's brand new. So, building a contrib-worthy modern Drupal module. And now, modern Drupal really starts with Drupal 8, but you should be starting here. So, the module make is one you need, and one not already made, to summarize so far. Start by writing up what you plan to do. Groups.drupal.org, contribute module ideas is one place, but if you have a blog, just put it on your own blog. Just write what you're planning to do. Then you're going to go and ask those same questions in other locations. All the places that were just listed there for forums and issues, and possibly Stack Exchange and Slack. But just get it written down. This is jumping ahead a bit, but if you can start right away with the sandbox project or a full project. If you've got a pretty good idea what it needs to do, you can describe it on the project page right away. And you can do this with the sandbox project, and it doesn't matter much at all. And so you can do a description for what you're planning to do, and you can file issues right away. Filing issues helps you think through what you were planning to do. It makes features and bugs more discoverable by other people. And if you do not get to it right away, there's a chance that someone else will get to it and do it in a way that they actually coordinate with you. And also, you and anyone else that helps will get Drupal.org issue credit for a resolved issue. You don't get any credit for contributing a module, only for issues. So having an issue where you work out, like a plan issue where you work out what the module is going to do, is absolutely fine. Again, most common thing you're going to be implementing is still hooks. Hooks are magic portals that let any module appear in another part of Drupal and do something. A hook is tied to a Drupal event and is an opportunity for a module to take action. There were 251 plus hooks in Drupal 7 core. After a concerted effort in the development of Drupal 8 to remove hooks and replace them with more modern and widespread outside Drupal programming practices such as plugins and services, we went from 251 hooks to 290 hooks now in Drupal 11. It's up 2 from 288 hooks in Drupal 8.8. To be fair, some of that increase was like we moved big contributed modules like views into Drupal core. That might have been early, but even after that, we are still adding hooks slightly faster than we're deprecating and removing them. Hooks are still very much part of Drupal. They're new modern way of using them, which is fantastic. Every contributed module can also provide hooks. So that is the main place to look. Many modules that have an API.php file in their root folder that will tell you what hooks they have. But you can search code for module alters. I'll update the blog on exactly what you said. Module implements, but there's a few ways hooks are called, but you can't really rely on that. Getting a list is the best way. And traditionally they work by naming convention. To implement a hook, you take the hook part off the hook and replace it with your module's name, or do it the new way, which is you just take the hook part off the name, and you have that in attribute in front of the PHP. And so resources for hooks, and is mostly in Drupal's API reference, which is also a great place to go for an overview of what tools are available to you as you pick through the pieces Drupal offers and assemble your module. That's at api.drupal.org, and all of the links will be online. So the whole group on extending it, and then key hooks, hook form alter, hook entity extra field info can all be replaced by using the extra field module, which combines 3 hooks into an extra field, and that's a great ecosystem to build on when you're trying to add another add a field that shows up on content without it living in the database. So it's calculated from other fields. It's based on custom logic in your module. We'll have an example on that a little bit later. But all the hooks, including the new way of writing hooks, is at api.drupal.org, API Drupal, Drupal core, api.php group hooks. And it's a really solid intro. And then it lists all of them, which is how I copied the entire list and found out there was 290, which was more than last time I copied the entire list. So bonus tip, don't bother to support older versions. So in your .info.yaml file for your module, so my module name .info.yaml, you have core version requirement. You're required to have this, but if you've only really been paying attention since Drupal 10, 11, you can just do greater than 10.2 specifically. A lot of great things were added in 10.2. If you want to use only the new hooks and not do a shim to do the old style hooks, you can have just 11.1 here. And so reading Drupal core release notes is a fantastic way to know what improvements have come, what new things you can build on, and 11.1 here has the new way of doing hooks. And the key thing you're looking for here is this is a feature minor release of Drupal, and also the new features tags. You can also read release notes in alpha, beta, and release candidate versions to see what's coming. Dev releases are rolling and do not have release notes, and you don't have to worry when you're scrolling back in the release history about the bug, about the insecure tag. I mean, that just means there was a patch, a security patch later, but it doesn't affect anything in the release notes generally. And again, the rest of the internet, I like to start with DuckDuckGo and get one set of results. If it's not getting what I look for, !G. Garg.co-blog shows up surprisingly often when I'm searching for how to do things on the internet. And your own notes, get them on the internet so you can find them again. Again, this happens to me constantly. And then copy or have technology copy for you. Drupal.org/project/module builder, module_builder is a great module for building boilerplate to make more modules so you're less likely to get wrong exactly where you're putting something in source, plugin, field formatter down the line. It'll help get it right for you. Drupal console used to be the go-to for this. Mauricio made a CK editor YouTube module that was like purely a Drupal console creation, and it was very simple, but was used by many people. It has slowly gotten more complex since then, but you can actually make things useful with code generators. I hear there's some other tools out there that will burn venture capitalist cash to write code for you. Unfortunately, it's also accelerating the boiling of our planet and ripping most of creative humanity off without credit while doing so I'm not really going to name or recommend any of those, but I hear they're definitely out there. Field formatter example, a module bringing in a PHP library and getting crazy with it is the module in other words that I started, and thank goodness got co-maintainers on. And started with simple field formatter, and we're going to look at that really quickly here. So our class is in other words list formatter, and we're extending Drupal core's entity reference label formatter. And just taking tiny little excerpts of the view elements method, which is the core of any of these field formatters. And we gather up the field elements, we run them through the third-party PHP libraries function, Oxford _ comma _ list, and we take the results of that and we wrap it in our own theme function. In other words, series wrapped, and then _ list makes the last part there a theme suggestion, so that, and then we add on additional theme suggestions based on the context. And if, again, every example I've cited is from a module I've contributed, so you can get the entire rest of the code up there, and it'll all be, the links will be updated in the accompanying blog. And going back to the very top of that module, its namespace is Drupal, in other words, plugin field formatter. So the namespace always includes your module name. When you're copying and pasting other text, that's an easy one to forget. And then and then in this case, it's bringing in the library in a pretty unusual way to just get access to it as a function. But you can have use function and then grab a function from external library. And that's the function that's the central part of what the module does. In this case, I also wrote and contributed the third-party library to PHP in general and its host on Packagist. But a lot of the time, you can find really cool third-party libraries on Packagist and use them in your module. And so most of what your module can be doing is wrapping a third-party library that's doing most of the work for you, and you're adding tons of value to Drupal by doing that. So why contribute? It's the right thing to do. I asked you to do it. People may contribute to the module you contribute. Someone may take over what you contribute and upgrade it or improve it greatly. This really does happen, and it's fantastic. And you're slightly more likely to find your own code again if you've got it online. Which is a serious thing. Like, which project did I do that on? And you can find it the way you find any module on Drupal. And so here's an example of someone who did a nice little, tiny little improvement to workflow buttons module. Add a configure link in the extend page, and that's just also a nice touch that you can remember to do for your own modules. The line in green is just a diff file, that's what's added, but configure : and then the route to your settings form is just a really cool thing to add. And now Drupal, when you enable your module, Drupal will link to your module configuration page, like in the message that says the module is enabled, and then down in the list for things. It makes your module a lot easier to use. So how do you develop while sharing the same code? Like, use the code while developing it. And this has gotten so much easier. Like, I used to warn people that 3 pages of gibberish would be worth it. Now it's just 1 page of almost intelligible JSON. You make a development release. So you should be starting as 1.0.x or 2.0.x. So generally, if you're brand new, it's 1.0.x. You're done. You may inherit a module that's still like 8.x - 1.x or 2.x. Don't worry about that. All of it works. But if you've made significant changes and don't want to mess up people that are using the current version, you can just tag a new release as 2.0.x. But whichever it is, you just add -dev to that. And that is going to have Drupal, that's going to have Composer grab it from Drupal.org, from git.drupalcode.org, in the latest version, using usually getting it from Git. And so it will have a connection in Git. And I did not put it in, but there's a super key secret thing to add to your global Git config that automatically switches it from using HTTPS which is how this is going to do it by default, to using the Git version. It's just, it's rewriting it for you, and that's fantastic, because instead of having another couple steps here where you're saying, I'm going to say get this module as Git, and doing the Git URL that you get if you go to your module page and say git clone, it's going to do it for you. So that's the most important thing that I do have to add to the blog post. But if you, I mean, it's a great technique. Not even right words to search for it, and I don't think doing it for Drupal in particular is that well documented. Doing it for GitHub and GitLab is more documented, but it's the same idea. Just change the path slightly. It's much easier now, but I do have to share that code that you add to your, you know what? I can bring it up from my thing at the end of the session. Places to get code from, examples for developers project is fantastic. Always remember to use it. It's like it was written just for you. And examples of doing any kind of hooking into Drupal you can think of. Subscribing to Drupal Planet to keep up to date with going on in the world. Drupal TV for videos. Lots of stuff is, if you learn from presentations, it's a good one. DrupalCal to find events in your city. Drupal Slack community, and many more. So maintaining, isn't that the most anyone can ask for us these days, is to maintain. Join the maintainers channel in Drupal Slack. I didn't even know about this channel, and a lot of the notes come from that we're going to go through really quickly are coming from there. And this is via Greg Boggs, who knows that he and Damien McKenna provides free support to module maintainers in this channel. Damien notes, thank people for their contributions, use the plan issues to coordinate release, and add test coverage step by step. And go slowly. In my opinion, do not let not having tests stop you from sharing your code, but it's yet another community you can join and learn a lot from, is people working on tests in Drupal. So drupal.org/testing is a thorough thing to do basic unit tests. And then the testing channel in Drupal Slack, you can get clarification, get more help. Again, you can start and leave your module in sandbox mode. You do not have to make your module a full project right away. I do. As soon as I have a plan for it, I do so. And I even messed up the formatting of the slides, which is perfect for this. Sarah Huggy in 2015. Lord, give me the confidence of a mediocre white man. I am gifting that to you. Just please contribute your code. We are better for it. Be explicit about your level of support. Like, this is built into the Drupal thing. It's like you can release a module and you can put as minimally maintained or seeking co-maintainers right away, or even seeking a new maintainer. Please don't, there's another option at the bottom for abandoned. Don't release a new module and abandon it right away unless you actually find after you built it that there's another module that does everything you were doing but better. It's unsupported is the last option, but it means abandoned. Commit based on your own opinion. Be willing to commit based on your own opinion. Don't let issues languish waiting for the community to test. Like, each module in Drupal is like its own little dictatorship. You are the benevolent dictatorship, and I am very much for many kinds of democracy, but the fact that Drupal's plugin architecture, modular architecture, extendable architecture means that you can just have your way of doing things and go ahead and do it without hurting anyone else is super powerful. It's how things get done. So, if you feel it's good and you have a bit of time, commit it on your own accord. Even if you put something as needs review in your issue queue, don't wait for it. And it's valid for you to do adjustments on committing it. So you can just say, maintainer adjusted on commit. Give yourself credit, give the person who did the original contribution credit. Just get, it's your module, do what you want with it. Be a part of something bigger. Part 2, integrating a third-party library like JavaScript or PHP service. Remember, you can file support and feature requests in that third-party library's issue queue. Want your module to respect people's human rights and not violate some good laws? Yes, you do. Join the fantastic community of people working for accessibility in Drupal. Getting Started Accessibility has a great intro on how to ensure your contribution is accessible. There's Drupal Accessibility Office Hours, and there is another Slack channel, Accessibility. Release. New tool I learned about from maintainers is Drupal-mrn-dev for generating release notes for you. But mostly, like, make sure you release so that people can use your module with a level of stability. It can be alpha release, but just you have to release it so your module is there. Oh, it's listed as having support for Drupal 11. Like, don't just get things into the dev branch, the 1.0.x branch, and leave it there, make a release. This can help generate release notes from the commits. Hopefully your commits reference the issues that were relevant. And I wrote something similar for a Drutopia project that did it because GitLab, we were on GitLab at the time, and GitLab did Markdown. I was generating Markdown, which reminds me, there's another tool that is useful from that era. You should have a readme.md file. This one will generate from your composer.json file. You don't need to have a composer.json in Drupal modules, but I like to have it. It makes it easier for other people to use an issue fork of your module, which makes it easier for them to contribute. And all the key parts of it can pull out, like the issue queue link, the funding source, can all be pulled out of your composer.json and automatically made into a README with that little bit of code. Choose Drupal security coverage for your module. This is the only part of the whole process of a Drupal module where you have to ask for permission, I believe, at this point. If I'm wrong, please get back to me. This is a fight we've had for a long time. I think we've lost a generation of contributors by making it too hard to contribute. But to opt into security coverage, you do have to make an application. It makes sense to do it after you've had your module around for a while. Even if you have the ability to opt into security coverage, you have to wait 2 weeks after releasing your module before you can even opt in. So it's always a second step. And it's another community within Drupal that you can join and get better at Drupal. Writing secure code for Drupal, the writing-secure code at drupal.org. And then there's 2 Drupal security Slack channels that are relevant. Security discussion, and then to reach a security team in your security team. Be part of something. Part 3, go to more camps, check for PHP and Symfony meetups and events. Go join local user groups, or go to the nearest or geographically nearest or topically nearest one that hosts virtual events. Garrick does a show and tell on Thursdays, 2 p.m. Central. We're mostly working on an Elixir project for Visions Unite democratic code, but we still do like what we learned, help each other out. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. We're all human. From Luke Allen Lever in Slack, hilarious. And his, not to take away from that important and universal sentiment, but Luke's Slack status is mad scientisting things. And that sort of changes the tenor of the don't be afraid to make mistakes sentiment. But it's a big wild world out there. Bite off a piece you can chew. Links for all of this and more. I believe I can still edit the session page, but agaric.coop, WTNAMFT, when there is not a module for that, has mostly relevant things that are not in the presentation because I just was in a different frame of mind writing the blog, but all the key links are being added. But let me know what you build. Ben at agaric.coop, social.coop at MLNCN, and following on the land acknowledgement this morning, Free Palestine and land back here in the US. Thank you. And yeah, I'll stay for questions as long as people want to. Sorry I ran over. And yeah, that's how to reach us. Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
Well, have you ever been in a situation where you wanted to say goodbye to one of your contributed modules that is one of your quote-unquote babies, and And what are some tips to, if you have any tips for saying goodbye?
Yeah, so being a responsible module maintainer, that wasn't the topic of my talk at all. I am not a very responsible module maintainer. The main thing is if someone asks to help and I see it, like I'm very quick to grant co-maintainer status. So that's the main thing. It's like if you work with anybody, try to make them a co-maintainer also, so it's more likely that things get covered. That's my main thing, is like share power quickly. It's all in Git. You can give somebody, when you give someone else maintainership status, you can decide whether they can add or edit other maintainers. So you can you can trust easily, and then be like, oh my God, you just put like spam in our module. Like, you're out, and I am, it's Git. You can, cut a new release and stuff. So that would be a great thing to come up with tips for. I think actually doing a blog post of I think this does something useful and I'm looking to give it away doesn't hurt. But yeah, I mean, mostly you just change the status to seeking co-maintainers. And that way, even if you miss the email from somebody or miss the issue notification, it's more likely that it'll just go quickly that an admin who has the power to change who owns a module will go ahead and do that. And there's another important approach to anyhow. I just did want to share the important code for how to always be able to push even when it's an HTTPS form, which is the natural cloning thing. It's just this here. And I would definitely add this to the blog post if we don't already have one about it. But the Drupal version is, instead of hts.git, hts.git.drupalcode.org, it changes it to git.git.drupal.org. It's totally different. But this will just naturally rewrite it, and you never ever have to think about it again, which is beautiful. Yeah. Any other questions? I'm going to keep thinking about being a responsible parent and not just walking away from your children and forgetting they exist. Sorry. Yes.
So, I guess I have never contributed a Drupal module, and the reason I have not done that is because everything that I do always feels like an edge case, or like something that is only relevant to the particular project that I'm working on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I should have had a section on that, because I feel I'm pretty good at being like, yeah, this is a little bit of an edge case, but I can see how it can be used by other things. And so if you're sort of you could see how it could potentially be used, it's cool to do it as a sandbox project. Even if at that point it's still got client name, somewhere in hard coded in some aspect of the code. But in a lot of cases it is adding a configuration page, and it goes from, it's still an edge case, but it goes from solving just your edge case to solving other people's. But adding the configuration page can be a bit of work. With the module builder, I think that's going to be a bit easier. Copying other things, Drupal's slowly making that kind of stuff a little bit easier to have a quick configuration page. But you can even just not do the configuration page and just be you can override this in settings.php. There's and if that's way you can reuse it in your other work, it's really more of a developer module at that point, but that's fine. It could help another developer. So, look how the edge cases could be made more generally useful.
So it doesn't hurt anybody to just get it out there.
No. The sandbox projects, I think they do. I need to look up, to some extent they claim the namespace, but not in a permanent way. So try not to like when you're naming a module, like don't do what I did 10 years ago and go for the shortest word you can. I have a module named all, which is unusable because it conflicts with Drupal.org's like issue queue. Like it has no issue queue because it shows all the issues. But the idea with that module, I believe, was to make it easier to update all of the content type information, like, you know, make revisions, like show the options thing. It just annoyed me to have to go to each individual content type and do something I wanted to apply to all content types. But like, they're grabbing the shortest possible module name made it impossible to maintain that module. So, and because the sandbox does actually claim its version of the short name, at least it used to some of the time, just make the name longer and descriptive. Yeah.
There's
yeah.
a limit on name lengths, though, right? I feel like this has gotten me into trouble with Drush generators, as I picked a really long specific name, and then it started making classes that had too long of a name for Drupal that caused an error.
That's a good one to run into. I haven't run into it yet,
is.
but I'm sure it's out there. So, yeah.
It might be like 25 characters or something like that, but when you get into like the name spacing or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I guess, I mean, but, you know, even just make sure it's unique, try to make it unique to your use case. People can work around it, you know, and once it's there, it is hard to change. So that really is the only potential downside, is that, you know, when something is a full release, it's very hard to change the namespace it has. But, you know, it's possible, and Drupal does it, but you need help doing it. And there's all kinds of silly, you know, silly namespace modules, so people are used to it. But I wouldn't necessarily avoid underscores anymore, because hooks don't work that way anymore. I used to like try to avoid underscores in my moduling, because in theory, you could accidentally make a hook name by having an underscore in your module, but now with modern 11.1 style hooks, no risk of that anymore. Yeah.
Because you mentioned contributing and sharing patches, I was wondering if you had any advice for making patches on modules in situ, besides just using the typical like issue forum forks, or doing a clone of the whole module outside, but some way you can test local.
The issue fork is a clone of the module.
Yeah.
Like that's how it works. Like I wish they were merge requests. I think everything would be easier, but it's actually a full clone of the module. So once you have an issue fork, you have forked the module. And there are a lot of advantages to that, in that you and all other people can collaborate on that issue fork, like completely apart from the module. Decide when you want to rebase on the module and bring stuff in, but like you can, you know, treat the issue fork close to how you would treat a contributed module. It's your domain. In this case, I think anyone can just roll in and get push access, but you generally don't have to worry about, you know, people want to, you know, people will be in the issue fork for the same reasons you are. For the fill PDF module, I have like an issue fork that's mesticized way beyond what can be in an issue fork, but I'm just using it, rolling with it, no problem. I'm building in the open, and I'm going to have to roll most of that into a separate module, fill PDF media integration module, because it's gotten too far. It's outside the scope. But you know, it's just what could be argued as edge case, and I'm just rolling with it. I mean, a lot of times what's an edge case, like you can think is actually, you can recast as a way to do something. I have a create reference and content module, which, yeah, I don't know. It's can't keep track of my modules, which is why I contribute them. But will you just let me open a browser? That may or may not work. All right. Firefox has killed my shortcuts. DP used to be my shortcut, as in 3 days ago it was my shortcut to getting to projects on Drupal.org. And so I feel like this one was one that felt like a little bit like an edge case, but was not hard to, yeah, I mean, it is, so this module could have been like just a hard-coded, like, I want to create, you know, it's in academic stuff, but like anything time things related, I want to, I believe we're using pre-populate, and not pre-populate anymore. What's the new better one? Entity pre-populate. Yeah, we switched to using entity pre-populate under the hood, but you know, I am on, you know, say I was on an author and I wanted to create an article by that author because, you know, this is a content site where authors don't post their own things. The content editors do it for them. You know, that would be a simple custom module, but like I like scaled it up to do it with configuration so that it could work for multiple instances. So that's generally the way I'm like, oh, this could be a contrib module instead of just the custom one, and then I do it. I'm not sure that's a good idea, but that's what I do.
Hey Ben, we're going to
Thank
start
you.
the next session.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, very short. Thanks.
Thank you. We're being thrown out, people.
Don't forget your button.
Haha, this session will go forever.